Welcome everyone, Quastine here with my first battle as the Chaos Dwarfs and the Chaos Dwarf DLC coming out soon enough for both Immortal Empires and Realms of Chaos. I've got an early access through Creative Assembly's content creation program. For now, I can only show you the battles. The campaign and others will come later. So, let's take a look at this particular situation. I have an army under Zhatan the Black. He's a fairly nasty fellow. He looks like he's perpetually angry. And he's riding, well, this very interesting mount that he has here. He's a pretty powerful melee legendary lord by the looks of it. He gets damage resistance with the effect intensity increasing as the unit takes damage. Melee, he has a bunch of debuff spells like leadership, armor, melee attack, melee defense, and then also more melee defense and cannot move. So he's got the Withering, he's got the Enfabling Foe, and he also has the Sadistic Snare. Then we have Gordas Backstabber over here right next to him, legendary hero. He does have a mount option, but I decided to put him on foot. I think he's going to be more effective for what I want him to do in this battle than he would be on a mount, because I want him to duel an enemy, the enemy lords, enemy heroes, whereas Zhatan is probably more going to run around trying to deal with enemy range units. He does have the Dagger of Malice, so poison, base weapon damage, melee attack, debuffing the enemy, of course. I do like that dice animation that he has there. In fact, it's one of his abilities. He has the Crooked Dice. The Crooked Dice is, you roll the dice, and you can either get armor, physical resistance, or damage resistance. Slippery, speed, melee defense, so a pretty decent combatant. Probably not the best duelist in the game, but what do I know? Then we also have the Bull Centaur renders, dual axes, anti-infantry, scaly skin. So they've got a decent level of armor, though certainly not the best, but they do have 25% missile resistance, they cause fear, and like other Chaos Dwarf units, they have fire resistance and contempt. Contempt also is something Zhatan has, by the way. It applies to the lords, not just the units. So, Contempt makes it so that Chaos Dwarf units, including their lords and heroes, are not affected leadership-wise by units without Contempt being routed from the battlefield. So basically, these hobgoblins that I have over here will not affect the leadership of my Chaos Warriors or any of my Chaos Dwarf units if they do rout from the battlefield. Then we have a Death Shrieker or Rocket Launcher. The way I would describe this unit, doing some testing with it, the way I would describe it, imagine taking Bombardier or a Poison Wind Mortar and increasing its range, doubling its range. Like take a Poison Wind Mortar team, double its range, and that's what you get with this. Ridiculous amount of damage, kind of works the same way as those Skaven weapon teams. Just fires a bunch of explosives into the sky, or rather fires an explosive into the sky, detonates, and does a bunch of projectiles that each of them does a ridiculous amount of damage. Also has a demolition rocket. I guess this is for walls or single entities if you want to use it, but that's, I imagine, not how you should be using this. Then, of course, the Hell Cannon, our trusted Hell Cannon. I might be mistaken in this, but I think it looks a bit different, just a tiny bit, at least for a Chaos Dwarf. Though the units do appear to look, the units that are pushing it to appear to look the same over here. They're also the same models on this Death Shrieker as well. Then we get Blunderbuss, Chaos Dwarf Blunderbusses. These are not Thunderers. The way I would describe them looking at their stats over here, they have short range, but they do a lot of damage. They have a silver shield, a decent level of armor, though because their shields are on their back, they're probably not going to, they probably are not going to have that great missile resistance when being shot at from range. At least that would be my impression. Either way, these guys are like Iron Hail Gunners that Cafe has. Not Thunderers, Iron Hail Gunners, like short range, lots of damage within that short range, lots of ammunition as well. I imagine these guys can be quite ridiculous in terms of their damage output. Then we have our regular Chaos Dwarf warriors with gray weapons and without gray weapons. Basically dwarf warriors, just the Chaos version. So they get fire resistance, contempt, that's it. but in a lot of ways pretty similar, though a bit though more powerful probably than the regular dwarf warriors. And then I've chosen to go with a bunch of hobgoblin sneaky gits, 4 of them. These guys have stealth, though that stealth I think might be a bit ruined by one of the abilities they have. But they're basically the Chaos Dwarf answer, the hobgoblin answer to nasty skulkers that the greenskins have. Though the way I probably see them is more like Certosa Free Company, in the sense that they don't have the massive amount of armor piercing that the nasty skulkers have. Instead, they have a bonus versus infantry, poison attacks, and also they have a precursor weapon. That might ruin your attempts to sneak around with them on the battlefield to just get an attack in against the enemy if you've enabled this. Their missile attack, because once they get close to an enemy, they will just shoot their missiles. And then just some hobgoblin cutthroats. I just basically got these to spend the last bit of gold. They look like a throwaway unit. Now, hobgoblins do have 2 things. Once when their HP is greater than 50%, they get base missile damage and base weapon damage. And they also have malign authority. So if they're next to a unit with contempt, they get a leadership benefit. These ones in particular seem like they're just a really throwaway melee infantry unit. They're not laborers. They're not as awful as laborers. So this is my army. Who am I up against? Well, of course it's Thorek Ironbrow, because if there's any dwarf who would love to kill, who would be upset over the breaking of tradition, it would be Thorek Ironbrow himself. The army I've given him is actually something that if you're playing Thorek in the campaign, or if you're playing Thorek in the campaign, in the current version that's live on the game, it's something you can actually achieve pretty early on with the exception of the engineer. So, what does he have? Well, he's got a bunch of miners with blasting charges, the Regiment of Renown with blasting charges, dwarf warriors, just 4 units of dwarf warriors over here, more miners, and a unit of iron breakers, which he actually starts with in the campaign. Then a bunch of quarrelers, quite a few quarrelers. Thorek has the superior army in the sense that his army is just... I mean, we both have armies that are 15,000 gold. I have the smaller army, and I spent a lot on artillery to get the artillery. So, Thorek is the attacker. If I set him as the defender, I would easily win this battle by just sitting at range and just annihilating him before he decided to come to me, if he came to me. So by putting him as the attacker, I am hoping that it's going to be a fair fight. So I've put these hobgoblins on the flanks to flank him, to flank some of his range units to deal with his artillery, because he does have 2 grudge throwers. I have the better artillery, he has the better everything else. And Thorek is absolutely insane in battle because of the runes he has. I remember quite a few months ago someone mentioned that Thorek is the only one worth using in multiplayer battles of the Legendary Lords of the Dwarves, because he's the only one that's actually useful. But anyway, let's get started. So, and I really hope I'm not just going to be able to win this battle by just killing them with artillery. If that's the case, we need to talk about today, I guess. Let's see what happens. Just gonna move these guys here. So, Hell Cannon doing its thing. And, like, the thing is, though, I need to do damage with ranged over here, because if I just charge his army without... my artillery is going to be significantly less effective. So, another Hell Cannon shot. Grudge throwers coming in. Let's use the boom ability, so base explosive damage. Another Hell Cannon shot. Ooh, yes. Hell Cannon secretly one of the best artillery pieces in the entire game. Maybe I should have not included artillery in this, but it is lovely. Okay, so I'm going to sneak around with these guys, pull these guys back a bit. Where are they exactly. So really, gonna move Zhatan over here. And so these guys are just going to deal with them over there. Point of fact, I am not going to advance just yet on them. Remember, my artillery is the main strength of my army. So Kurtis is going to go after him. Zhatan is going to go after some units. These fellows right here. Okay, here we go. Right, get those centaurs in the fray. Right, Zhatan is gonna have the time of his life there. Oh, those iron breakers really had my blunderbusses there. Alright, just gonna adjust them here a bit. Okay, they've done their job. The enemy artillery has been taken off the field of battle. Alright, I still have some units here. Ooh. I think I'm going to want to send a unit of hobgoblins over here to deal with that enemy engineer. Flank them around. Blunderbuss is shooting. Let's shoot at those iron breakers. So my Chaos Dwarf warriors, they're holding the line as well. Centaurs. Okay, very good. Now the thing about this battle, Kurtis got wiped out by Thorek. Alright, so my gunpowder units are actually shooting in... Oh shit. If I lose him, that is gonna be a nasty affair. Alright. I'm just gonna debuff him. Send those centaurs to deal with some more foilers. Kurtis is back. So Thorek is such a powerhouse that you can't actually kill him. Zhatan has been a bit of a disappointment so far. Granted, he might have been more useful if I had not gone with the mount option, to be honest there. Just a guess. Well, when in doubt, unleash the chaos shotguns on them. They're actually quite effective shooters, though, gotta say. I am just gonna run with my centaurs over here. And it is done. The dwarf boomer has been driven from the field. Let's just kill him. If I can kill him. It might be a bit of a taller order than you might reckon. There we go. Well, victory. Most of my army is dead. The battlefield is littered with corpses. But, quote-unquote, victory, if you will. What a massacre. And actually, the hobgoblins suffered the least. But then again, that was a deliberate choice on my part to have them as a flanking unit. Though I could have moved them faster over there. Alright, so let's end the battle. So, this is the Chaos Dwarf roster that is available in Skirmish and Multiplayer. The map setup was the Tortured Ashes, the Plains of Zar. There's a bunch of Chaos Dwarf maps, or Darklands map, and yeah, we both had 15,000. My army was smaller, though better on the artillery side. His army was bigger, better on the infantry side. And I mean, this is a pretty reasonable army to get as the dwarves in your campaign. In fact, you could make an entire army maybe with 3 grudge throwers, more quarrelers, and that would really work in the current live version of the game very, very well in your campaign. In fact, that's exactly what I do if I was playing Thorek in the campaign. As for this, don't know, to be quite honest with you. But some cavalry options, like you do have some other cavalry choices like Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders, and yeah, just Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders. They also have Wolf Raiders with bows. The thing about that, though, is while these guys are cheaper and they do have a decent amount of charge bonus. I'm like, I'm never gonna use these guys unless like it's just the cost effectiveness that makes them useful in like multiplayer. But I'm not a multiplayer player, really. I mean, the bow centaurs certainly did very well. Like, you do have free versions of these guys. Maybe I could have gone with the one that has gray weapons, but like based on what they're saying over here, it's like this is the anti-infantry version, this is the anti-large version, and like base weapon damage, for the great weapons, like 34 base weapon damage, 80 armor piercing damage. It's the same for both of them. So the dual weapon variant here seems like it's the one that's really dedicated against infantry. Though the regular bull centaur renders also seem fairly significant, but I'm not sure why you would ever bother with just the baseline version when you got these specialized versions that just are, well, I guess these guys do have more melee defense, but less melee attack. These guys have significantly less melee defense, though a bigger charge bonus. I don't know. I personally, just looking at this, dual axes seem like the way to go against infantry, and maybe if you're dealing with large units. Although, the way you should view this large benefit, at least this is the way it's been for Imperial Knights. The large benefit is more like an anti-cav benefit, though I don't know how well that will work for these centaur renders. And infantry-wise, you get your laborers, very cheap, very cost-effective, but pretty damn worthless in battle, I gotta say. Like orc laborers, decent enough, like they're basically like orc boys with a two-hand weapon, though worse off. But they do have armor piercing damage, which is always nice to have. And then you got like these three units here just seem like, why would you ever bother with them, to be honest with you? Unless you just want to tar pit an enemy, just throw a bunch of like expendables, meat shells, but that's basically their role as I see it. Then you have the sneaky gets, the stealth, the Chaos Dwarf warriors, regiments of renown, of course, Infernal Guard, basically Longbeards, I suppose you could say. Yeah, so Longbeards with gray weapons. Iron Swarm are basically Ironbreakers, I guess, the equivalent of Ironbreakers. And then you have range units, so you get Hobgoblin Archers, Blunderbusses, Infernal Guard with Fireglaves. It'll be interesting to try these guys out later on. But yeah, this was a pretty early game army, I guess, or a cheaper army, because if you start looking at the cost of some of this stuff, like the Fireglaves are pretty damn insane. I mean, the blunderbusses themselves are not exactly cheap either. If I just remove one unit here, the Thunderers are 700, and they're much longer range, and they have, while they only have a bronze shield. Not sure how effective that shield there was, really. It took a lot of damage from range, though granted I did have substantial range benefits. Like, I had better artillery, they had a much better ranged army than I did. Took them out though. Anyway, Costin here signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, enable notifications, and stay tuned for more.